Welcome into Season 5. This is episode number 19 of the Outlap F1 podcast. The hills are alive with the sound of Formula One. That means we are headed to Austria. It is the Austrian Grand Prix preview for 2023. And you've got Andy, and I'm along with my usual co-host on the previews, Cody, tonight. Cody, it's good to see you, my friend. It's been a couple days since I've seen you last, but happy belated late birthday to you one more time. And just asking you, how's it going?
Yeah, thanks again. It's going great. I liked your Sound of Music bit. That was really good. So yeah, just looking forward to squeezing in one more race before I'm on the other side of the planet and won't be able to watch British Grand Prix, sadly. So, but yeah, gotta squeeze one more in.
Well, unless you want to hack into the Japanese interwebs and try to find it that way. And anything is possible over there. I'll tell you that. They're definitely good at interwebs in Japan. So, but yeah, if you don't know, Cody's going for probably once in a lifetime cruise to literally the other side of the world. It's Japan and all sorts of stops, right?
Yeah, Japan, a little bit in South Korea. Sadly, not going to be over there when the Japanese Grand Prix is going on. Probably to my fiance's delight, but. Yeah, it's gonna be a great time. I'm super excited, if mildly terrified, but it'll be an experience.
I still think you're going to see a lot of F1 themed stuff. I'm sure you'll see some advertising and stuff because the Grand Prix is still coming there. So it'll be interesting. So feel free to take pictures. We'll share them. Any sort of foreign F1 influence, we'll definitely try to put it out over the course of your trip. But yeah, very, very fun. Sounds good. So if you found our show, you can find us as always on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course YouTube. And that's at Outlap F1 Podcast. See our link tree, and you can do us a solid if you happen to be looking at this on YouTube. Click the like and subscribe button, or if you're on your favorite podcasting app, please click the 5-star button. If you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify, it just helps us to get our content to you that much quicker. You can email our show at chatnow@outlapf1.com. That'll get you the email. You could go to our wonderful website, www.outlapf1.com. We'll get you there. As always, this is the part where we thank our continued monetary supporters, and we're very thankful to all of them, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of what we call our Outlap F1 Nation, see our link tree in our show notes. It's our anchor page, $1 or $5. It all goes into the show, making it a little bit better. We hope that we've been able to continue to do that. It enables us to get some of these podcasts from some odd locations. Sadly, we're not equipped to do the podcast from Japan, but we would have tried. But anyway, so if you'd like to hop in and give us some support, we would be most grateful for that. As just a reminder, you can always take advantage of the good folks at Manscaped. You can find our code OUTLAP, that's OUTLAP, get 20% off and free shipping. And our final sponsor, the F1Guy.com. This is our buddy Vincenzo Landino. This is his shirt line. This is F1 quality merch at not necessarily the F1 quality price. So feel free to check that out. There's some good stuff in there. If you're a Ferrari fan, he's got some really cool Ferrari stuff. And I would definitely recommend checking that out. Okay. So we are focusing in on the Austrian Grand Prix weekend, but there was a bit of news that broke earlier this week. And the top story, Hollywood actor Ryan Reynolds is part of an investor group that is taking a 24% equity stake in the Alpine F1 entry. The investor group, formed of Otro Capital, Redbird Capital Partners, and Maximum Effort Investments, have acquired a 24% stake in the F1 team, placing their value, say Alpine, at around 900 million euros. Cody, we know F1 values have gone through the roof, and now we have, I think, an actual confirmation of what market value really is. What's your thought on Ryan Reynolds as a potential owner, or just the thought of the story in general?
I think it's very interesting. Definitely a good headline. I think it's incredible that this Alpine team is valued at 900 million euros. That is an astronomical amount of money. And I can see why anyone would want to be investing in it right now when F1 is heading for a peak in popularity. I gotta laugh at the maximum effort investments part. I did not know that Ryan Reynolds stuck in Deadpool jokes anywhere that he could, but you gotta love it. And I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to or frightened by the prospect of some Deadpool paint schemes in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's got some stakes in some English football, English soccer teams that he's been actually a very fervent supporter of, and he's put a lot of money into it. But I don't know that. I know he's had interest in Formula One before, but it's good. I mean, it's not only him, but it's some other big stars as well. But you got to think this is another way, and I give Alpine some credit for actually raising the money this way by bringing in somebody else new, kind of outside of the box type thinking that you hadn't really seen before. This isn't an auto manufacturer. It isn't anybody who you would instantly think, oh, this is connected to a Formula One team. They give them a minority stake, so they don't have any decision making power. It's not like they're gonna call a board meeting and oust Otmar Safmar tomorrow. They can't do that. So Otmar, your job is safe, it looks like, for the time being. But I think overall it's positive. But and what it does is it now shows, I mean, what real market value actually is today. Whenever you have one of these things come up, now you kind of really know. It's not just looking at air. And one of the secondary stories that kind of breaks out of this is, this obviously is going to help Alpine, but it hurts a bit the prospects of Andretti, because it really does now show how almost inadequate the entry fee hurdle, the $200 million that everybody agreed to in the Concord Agreement way back when in 2020, when market values were low. That's what's in the rule books, but it's in place until 2025. But look, I would say if you're looking at the next agreement for 2026, look for that thing to definitely get addressed. That, I think, actually makes life a little harder for Andretti to just say, hey, this was our entry fee, we want to pay it, let us in. And then the other thing that's in Andretti's way is now they actually have some competition. It's not just them alone as the lone bidder anymore. They've got High Tech Global Holdings, which is the holding company for High Tech Grand Prix. They just jumped into the 2026 lottery or bid at the FIA to try to say that they were ready to go for 2026. And then there's the Formula Equal bid as well, also against possibly going against Andretti. Maybe you see the FIA let in one. I don't think they would want to let in two at this point, already given the pushback from the other teams. But where do you think this is going? I mean, is it just going to be the FIA is going to make a ruling and everybody's just going to have to eat it, or is there more drama coming?
As far as the teams joining, I thought that they had originally stated that they were hoping to add two teams to the grid. Whether or not that's still the case, based on the pushback from teams, I'm not entirely sure. I think they're for sure going to at least add one team. And if there's, I think if they're going to end up doing two slots, I think Andretti probably has a pretty good shot for it. Although it seems like the name is not carrying as far as we'd all hoped in Formula One. Originally, I also thought, going back to the Concord Agreement for a minute, I originally thought that $200 million entry fee was astronomical and kind of ridiculous. But yeah, now we've got a more solid number of how much these teams are actually worth. They stand to make a lot of money after making that investment. So yeah, should it go up in the next Concord Agreement? Not really sure. I agree with increasing it. Will it? Probably, but they stand to make the money back on it so long as they can be moderately successful. I'm also really happy that there is some competition for those seats. It's good to see interest from other teams. I, for one, think the more competition, the better. Although I guess in the past, when they've tried to do this before, the competition that they brought in was not nearly up to the quality of the other teams. So I'm hoping that we don't see that happen again, or else it could be a very, very, very long time before F1 lets more teams back into the fold.
Well, and I think you have a bunch of competing stakeholders here. You have the FIA, who I think wants to have one or maybe two teams join, and you have the teams in Liberty that kind of like the way things are right now. It's all rosy. If you show up, you get prize money. If you're
Hmm.
the 11th team, if you're AlphaTauri and Andretti hops over you, guess what? You get no money for showing up. And
Hmm.
that's a tough prospect to swallow. And I don't know that anybody wants to take on that risk. So you've got that dynamic working that's got to work itself out. The other thing is the FIA has to make a determination on whose bid they want to accept to then throw it into the teams to say, okay, here's what's going to happen. Right now, you said the 200 million is the entry fee. These teams have got it covered. We've vetted it. We've agreed to it. Now here's the process. We're going to let them in. Um,
Hmm.
it's clear Andretti's not going to be able, unless they want to pony up 900 million euros. And we know they're well funded, but I don't think they're that well funded.
Yeah.
And that's a minority stake. So that's not even a majority stake. So unless they want to get in, the prospect of them buying their way in, I think, is now completely shut off. And that's kind of a negative for them. They have to rely on this tender process that the FIA's laid out to try to get there in that way. Um, so yeah, I think a
Hmm.
lot more. There's going to be a lot more drama. I think of the two front runners would be Andretti. Obviously, I think they have the most inside track right now and the best looking bid amongst the three. But this high tech bid, I mean, the high tech's got infrastructure. They're ready to go. They would just need to do some updates to their factories, and they could be Formula One ready. The Formula Equal one, I think, is mainly a money, like we're a group that has a lot of money and we'd like to do Formula One. I don't know all that much about it. I will read up on it in the next coming weeks and try to find out a little bit more about them. But I think if you're rooting for Andretti, this new stake in Alpine makes the path a little harder. I don't think it takes
Yeah.
them out of it by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it makes it a little harder, and it closes off the prospect of them buying a distressed AlphaTauri entry. That's
Hmm.
clearly not going to happen now, especially
Yeah.
given this valuation. All right. So
I agree.
speaking of distressed AlphaTauri, if you don't like the AlphaTauri livery and you don't like the fact that it's a bit of a fashion show whenever they launch the car, and you find all this clothing that good luck trying to find it in the United States, guess what? You only have one more year, and then that's pretty much it. Helmut Marko has been holding court, as he tends to do on the Austrian GP weekend, and talking to anybody who will hold a recording device up to his mouth, and somebody has. And he's basically come out, and I forget the nice lady's name that he was talking to, but a publication came out that said there will be new sponsors, a new name, orientation is clear based on Red Bull Racing as far as regulations allow. Do it yourself constructions are the wrong way. So there's two things here. One, we're getting rid of the AlphaTauri name and the livery. And two, we're changing the way AlphaTauri is going to do business. Here comes another team that's going to pivot one way or another. They're either going to go more customer with Red Bull, or they're going to go in another direction that's yet to kind of be determined. But whatever they were doing, they're going to stop doing the way that they've been doing it. So, Cody, what's your thoughts on AlphaTauri?
I think, a new name, new sponsors, new livery, and all that stuff. I think that's kind of exciting. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the AlphaTauri livery. Really cool name, but I think that the Toro Rosso name and liveries were much cooler. So I'm hoping we go back to something a little bit more like that. As far as the part where you said the orientation is clear based on Red Bull Racing, as far as the regulations allow, the do-it-yourself constructions are the wrong way. That makes me I kind of have a little bit of a negative opinion of that, because that makes it seem like they clear cut want this AlphaTauri team, or whatever it will become. They want it to be Red Bull Junior team and nothing beyond that. They don't want them to be able to really, you know, design the car too much beyond what Red Bull says that they can do. That sounds like they want to do, all Red Bull parts, be involved in the design as much as possible. Red Bull wants to be involved in the design as much as they can, or I don't really know how how much the junior team can really take as far as like the aerodynamics and stuff. But it sounds like they want to, make it even more defined as the Red Bull junior team than it is even right now. And I'm not really super cool with that. I think it's kind of goes against the interest of competition that you've only right now got 10 teams on the grid as it is, and one of those teams is baby Red Bull. I think that's not really fun for competition. It's just a training ground, as we've seen for Red Bull drivers as they're coming up through the ranks. And they're not the only team that does that, where their future prospects are coming up through a mid tier or a lower team like Williams or Alfa Romeo. But this whole even wanting to take away freedom from design, I think is not really cool.
Yeah, as with many things that Dr. Marco says, I take some of it with a grain of salt. I do think you're going to see new sponsors and a new name. And Dr. Marco was also the guy that said Colton Herta was going to be confirmed by Italy last year, and that never happened either. So I do think they are going to pivot in how they've operated. It may go back to being more of a traditional, instead of a sister team, they may go back to more of a junior team format. But even when they were the traditional Toro Rosso, they gave their aerodynamicists some freedom. They were able to design cars that looked sometimes dramatically different than a Red Bull does. Now, the other thing that you have to put that against is, well, you have the most dominant aerodynamicist in the world working for Red Bull. Why would you not listen to everything he's going to say? And if he says, make the car look like this and do this in the floor, maybe you might not listen to that and move that knowledge over. What I think ultimately is, I think the big thing is, one, we know the name, and two, we're going to see a strategy pivot from where it was today. So looks like change will be on the way in the AlphaTauri world. And speaking of that, Dr. Marco also now has basically openly admitted, hey, look, Nick DeVries is, quote, under pressure. Shocker, I'm sure, to all who have observed. So that always begs two questions. One, does he keep his seat for all of this year? I feel like we've answered this one like 4 times, but we'll ask it again. And two, does it actually present a path for Daniel Ricciardo, who's sitting on the sidelines, seems to be willing to sit in an AlphaTauri seat, which is interesting because he wasn't willing to sit in a lower tier team last year. So lots of different intermingling, changeable parts possibly happening in the Formula One world. Cody, what's your take on it?
I think that Nick DeVries will probably stay in the seat the rest of the season. I don't envision him staying in this unless something changes throughout the rest of the season, where suddenly he breaks out and he's at least keeping up with Yuki Tsunoda, who we have to remember he's getting, beaten by Yuki Tsunoda pretty handily so far this season. And while Yuki has made great strides, it seems, this season, in the past, he hasn't been necessarily the most reliable driver either. And so for Nick DeVries to not be close to keeping up with him is not great. So I think he's probably going to be out after the season is over. As far as being a path for Daniel Ricciardo to come back to Formula One, I really, really hate to say it, but I think Danny Rick is done. I think that Red Bull has young prospects in the wings. They've got, Liam Lawson in the Junior Formula Series. He's, looks very capable. And I think that Red Bull would be more willing to hedge their bets on him than Daniel Ricciardo, who has not had a very good Formula One year in several seasons. He's been on the sidelines for a whole year. Had that little, even the little commentary stint recently. I think he's probably done with his Formula One career.
Yeah, to me, I've said this before, it would be very unfortunate if Nick DeVries doesn't get a chance to at least see out the rest of this season and show what he can do. This first part of this season has been, very much circuits that he's not necessarily used to. The quote came out that, Dr. Marco and Christian Horner disagreed on whether or not they wanted to put DeVries in the seat, and Christian Horner won out the debate. So now Nick DeVries is now Christian Horner's guy, and he's not producing. And now here's Helmut Marko, airing of grievances. This is what he tends to want to go do. So I do think it's kind of giving Nick DeVries very much a raw deal. I would hope that he gets a chance to see out the seat. I would feel bad that a guy who worked his butt off in Formula E finally makes it back to F1. You know, if they take him out mid-season, it just kind of reaffirms the fact, or it reaffirms the notion, not the fact, the notion that Formula E drivers, once they get there, are not coming back out of that profession. And that, I think, would be very unfortunate. So I'm kind of rooting for Nick DeVries to hopefully get it together and prove everybody wrong a little bit. But as to the Daniel Ricciardo thing, I think I said it before. I wouldn't understand. While I do see a path where, okay, if he goes to AlphaTauri and he's clearly still fast, and I mean, he's got to be keeping up with Tsunoda, regardless of where the car is. You could make the argument that if they want to move away from Sergio Perez, that would be then a natural move, and you could then maybe see Daniel Ricciardo back in a Red Bull seat. I don't see that path as necessarily working. I'm sure that's the path that Ricciardo, if you asked him, that's what he'd want to do. But why would you want to go when you didn't want to sit in a Haas and you didn't want to sit in an Alpine last year when those seats were available and ready to go, to then go into what is currently the worst car on the grid below Williams? Because I think Williams in the last race has showed you that's a better car right now. To only be able, like, he's not going to be in the points consistently. He'd be lucky to get 10th place in those cars. And that's, I don't think, what he wants to do. It's not where his career arc would tell him he needs to be. And if he's going to totally give up any bargaining power by going to AlphaTauri, I mean, congratulations, you just lost any bargaining power you had with your name. You're just going to, and if it doesn't produce, you're done. There's no path anywhere. And that, I think, would be very unfortunate. You know, it makes me sad as a fan of his to see what Red Bull's kind of done to him. And they've kind of let him be the guy that come and smile and look nice and be funny. But there's really nothing here for you, you know. And that's kind of the dirty little secret that I don't think anybody's saying. But that's what it feels like. So, you know, I would hope that it would be real if he would try to pursue it, but I don't see him getting all the way to the big team, and that's the only path that I think would work for him. All right. Speaking of Daniel Ricciardo's former team, I did a good job of like transitioning all of these stories.
Yeah, nice segment.
I normally don't do this, but I guess it worked this time. But speaking of his former team, that would be the Papaya Warriors at McLaren. This is the race at long last. We have our upgrades. They're actually talking about performance. Lando Norris has said he's subtly excited. It's the first like positive thing I think he's actually said about the car all year. I've heard it basically compared to say almost every aero part is going to get swapped out over the next 3 races. This is all about lap time. It's all about performance. The big chunk of it is supposed to be this weekend. God, I'm hopeful for something. Tell me something. The only thing that bothers me is they're doing it. They're going to bring this upgrade package in a sprint weekend, and it's really hard to correlate in a sprint weekend. But hey, if it works, you might as well try to dial it in on Friday, and let's see what happens. But I'm excited, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not going to be one of those all in and then fall flat on my face. I've done that one too many times.
I am excited for it. I am looking for a legitimate reason to go back to wearing the golf livery hat. I love that hat. I'm wearing it right now. Can't bring myself to do it just yet, though. Waiting to see a little bit more come out of them. I would also really like to see a better car from McLaren, just so we can see a little bit more of what Oscar Piastri can actually do, because he's been kind of flying under the radar so far this season, and I think a lot of that has to do with McLaren in general flying under the radar. We've seen some cool moves from Lando Norris, especially this last race in Canadian Grand Prix, but overall still couldn't make it to the points because of that penalty. I think with the better car, they will both shine. We all know Lando Norris can shine, but I think Oscar Piastri will really start to show his stuff with a better car, and I think some more clear, inter-team rivalry within the team between Piastri and Norris would be very exciting.
Yeah, and to me, I just want to see them have confidence in the car. One thing that I know just from watching Lando is what he wants to try to do when he's at his best. He's throwing the front end of that car into the corner and finding a way to make it stick. And there have been times, especially in qualifying or at the end of like a free practice 3 or something, where I'll watch and he'll try to do it and the car just doesn't stick. And he'll go like 3 or 4 times around and he won't set a competitive lap. And it's like the car just isn't doing what he needs it to do. So that's all I really want to see. Now, one, he loves going to this track in Austria, and he's had some of his best moments. So he may be able to not only fly under the radar, but we've seen the car have some decent in the last couple of races qualifying pace. It's been the race pace that's kind of been the bugaboo lately. So hopefully they can pair one with the other with this new package. And if it's overall a lot stronger and better on the tires, it's got to be strong. It's overall stronger. It's got to be better on the tires, and they got to find a way to run in a pack where it doesn't kill them. So those are the things I'm looking for as a McLaren fan. So let's hope it's the start of something. Maybe this is actually the start of their season.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. All right. So we will go ahead. We will drop our green flag, and we will get into the Red Bull Ring track facts and the Austrian Grand Prix weekend proper. Our track facts, as always, are brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. Cody, take away. Tell us about the Red Bull Ring.
All right. This weekend, we are heading to the Red Bull Ring, located in Spielberg, Austria. Number of laps around this Grand Prix is 71 because the track length is a nice, short, quick 4.318 kilometers or 2.683 miles. Tire selection from Pirelli for this race are the C3, C4, and C5 tire compounds, which are the softest tires in the Pirelli range. The track stats from Pirelli are as follows. Looks like pretty much this track falls right down the middle in a lot of categories. So we are looking at a 2 out of 5 for traction, 3 out of 5 for braking, 3 out of 5 for lateral load, 3 out of 5 for tire stress, 3 out of 5 for track evolution, 3 out of 5 for asphalt grip. You're seeing where I'm going here. 4 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, and a 3 out of 5 for downforce. The qualifying lap record is held by Valtteri Bottas, set in 2020 with a 1 minute 2.939 seconds, while the race lap record was set by Carlos Sainz, also in 2020, while he was racing for McLaren, and that time was a 1 minute 5.619 seconds. Most wins around the current configuration of the track goes to Max Verstappen, who has won 4 times here, once in 2018, once in 2019, and twice in 2021, when we had both the Austrian Grand Prix and the Styrian Grand Prix here. Second place goes to, it looks like it's actually a tie between 3 drivers for second place for most wins, and that goes to Nico Rosberg with 2 wins in 2014 and 2015, 2 wins for Lewis Hamilton in 2016 and 2020, the Styria Grand Prix that year, and 2 for Valtteri Bottas, once in 2017, and he won the 2020 Austrian Grand Prix. What is the circuit like, Andy?
All right, so it's a smaller circuit, but the Red Bull Ring certainly packs a lot into that short lap. The first half rewards the power as the cars blast along 3 straights separated by a pair of uphill right-handers. But then as the drivers work their way back down the hill, the circuit becomes more of a toboggan ride as the cars canyon through a series of quick corners, including the exhilarating Rindt right-hander named for Austria's first F1 champion. As for the weather, and the weather looks to be a factor all 3 days. Don't forget, this is a sprint weekend as well. So qualifying will be on Friday. And for Friday, we have partly cloudy in the morning, thunderstorms developing later in the day, high of 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds will be light and variable. Chance of rain will be 85%. Locally, heavier rainfall and a 90% chance of rain is possible. For the sprint on Saturday, a steady rain in the morning, showers continuing again in the afternoon. High only 67, so bit of a change in the dynamic. Winds will be light and variable. Chance of rain 80%. And for the race on Sunday, partly cloudy in the morning, increasing clouds with periods of showers again later in the day. High of 75. Winds will be light and variable. Chance of rain 50%. So it looks like the weather will be a factor all weekend.
And am I seeing a quarter of an inch rain on Saturday for the sprint? I really hope they have it.
It could be, and we could see delays, and we could see all sorts of stuff happen. Could start under a safety car. What happens with the sprint shootout? Does that get washed out? And then what happens? We may have to get out our rule books this weekend. All sorts of possible permutations. But let's hope we just get all the sessions in. That's first and foremost when they're scheduled, so that we don't have craziness. We want the craziness on the track, not the craziness off the track. But all right, so we will take a quick break. We will reset over here. We'll pay a couple bills, and then it's time for I need to make some inroads. Cody has been dominating me in the last few weeks of the Choose Your Champion predictions game. We'll get into all that in just a little bit, and then we'll tell you how to watch your F1. Quick break, come on back. Welcome back in. This is Season 5, Episode number 19 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2023 Austrian Grand Prix race preview. You've got Cody, and, well, I'm not Cody. You have Cody. He's our co-host. You've got Andy and Cody on the podcast tonight, and we are getting you all ready for the Austrian Grand Prix. We've gotten through our Track Facts preview, and now we're getting into... As the music will tell you, it is time for our Mortal Kombat Showdown, our Choose Your Champion predictions game, and I need to rally. Yes. So we will start, as we are apt to do, with the pole sitter. Last year was, no surprise here, was Max Verstappen on the pole. Just looking at the notes, unless you're going to do a last-minute change, we got some differentiation here, so I like this. Cody, what's your take?
I'm going with a little bit of a different answer here. I'm going with Charles Leclerc to take the pole. We all know Charles Leclerc is an excellent qualifying driver. He did win the race here last year, and I think he still got something to show on this track. And I'm hoping that Ferrari will have a little bit of a better handle on those upgrades that they brought for a couple races ago. So going for Leclerc, taking the dive on that one.
All right. Well, may prove effective. But I'm going chalk. I'm saying it's Max Verstappen until somebody takes it away from him. And maybe Charles Leclerc is willing to do that this weekend. But I've got Max and pretty much a lock until I see someone else do it. All right. So we will move on to our lap time. And last year's pole time was a 1:04.984. We do have rain in the forecast. That may affect the lap times. Cody, what's your thought?
I am thinking that exact same thing. I'm thinking that we're going to be a little bit slower than last year on account of the rain. So I'm going with a 1:08.369 seconds.
All right. I would classify your lap time as having maybe a dry line. Maybe we get like Q2 in Canada type situation. I read that forecast and I go... It might be. It's just a full-on extreme wets to inters type deal. So I'm going to go with a 110.846. I do think they'll be on inters because they hate the wets. But I don't know that we'll get all the way to a dry line. But we'll see. We'll see. That's what makes it fun. All right. So moving into the race itself, our podium from last year was Leclerc, taking the win. Max Verstappen coming in second. Lewis Hamilton taking the bronze position. So, Cody, what's your thought on the race on Sunday?
I think once we get to race day, it's going to be all Red Bull. I think that the sprint race will also give, on the off chance that they're not quite there for qualifying, maybe looking at Sergio Perez here. I think the sprint race will give them time to gain a little bit of ground before race day, where they will finish that off. So I've got Verstappen in first place, Sergio Perez in second place, and Charles Leclerc finishing off the podium in third place.
All right, very good. I'm going to have Max Verstappen taking the win. It's theirs until, like I said, until somebody literally snatches it away. And I hope somebody does. I actually hope that I'm wrong about that prediction. That would be a whole lot of fun. But I do have Lewis Hamilton. He loves this track. He goes very well here. I do think the Mercedes are getting on top of their upgrades. They looked pretty good in Canada as well. So I've got Lewis Hamilton in second place. And don't count out Fernando, man. Those Aston Martins brought a lot of upgrades. They have now had a chance to get one Grand Prix under the belt. I do think they'll be in the mix as well. So I got Fernando Alonso in third. All right. Looking at last year's times, we had fastest driver was Max Verstappen, and that was a 1:07.275. Cody, who do you have as fastest lap and driver?
I'm seeing here that we forgot to put in our drivers here, and for me that was because I don't think anyone's going to take the fastest lap away from Verstappen. He seems to love to compete for it, even when he doesn't really need to. And I think between the changeable conditions and his competitive spirit, he's going to be the man to take it. And I'm going out on a limb here, since we're supposed to get some wet weather, but the drive times are a little slower during the race. I'm putting my time for fastest lap exactly the same as my qualifying pole lap time at 1 minute, 8 seconds, .369.
All right, very good. I am going with a bit of a quicker time because I do think race day, I have a funny feeling race day is going to be one of those, we think the rain is coming and it all starts to rain when they're all on the podium type of situations. So that's what it kind of feels like if I'm reading the forecast. So I'm going to go with basically a dry lap time, 1:07.952. And I think Lewis Hamilton will set it because I'm wondering if Max Verstappen is going to have enough of a gap to where it's not going to matter. And Lewis may just throw on that set of softs and see what he gets. But we shall see how that all plays out. All right. So our bonus picks this week, we're back into the points, and we're going to go with P6, P7, and P8. So, Cody, I'll let you go first. What's your thought on the mid-pack of the points?
I've got George Russell finishing in sixth place. I really hope that he finishes higher than that. But if I'm going with my gut that Ferrari's going to be a little more on the pace this week, I think he was doing so well in Canada until he smacked the wall all on his own volition. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's got to make some kind of comeback to sixth place. I've got Esteban Ocon in seventh place. Seems to be the perfect place for the Alpines to slot in right now. And lastly, in eighth place, I've got Lance Stroll, still probably finishing quite a ways off his champion teammate, Fernando Alonso.
All right. So I am going to go full fanboy, McLaren upgrades, getting them back into the fight. This is what I want to see, and I'm going to root for, and why not, dang it. Lando Norris to come home in P6. I'd love to have him a little bit higher, but I think first race on this upgrade package, it is a sprint weekend. There is weather. I can't see it all coming together in one weekend as much as I would love to see that happen. But I think he will be back in the fight and doing what he does, which is being special around this track. Esteban Ocon, I like your pick there for P7, so I will agree with it and take Esteban Ocon for P7. And Oscar Piastri, you mentioned it in our earlier discussion. We want to see what he does with a better car. Can he show what he's really made of, put some moves on a track that he's done really well in F3 and F2. He's got experience here. So I think that bodes well for him as well. So I've got two McLarens in P6 and 8 in the middle of with an Ocon sandwich. All right. So for our prop bet this weekend, because Helmut Marko has been talking so much about AlphaTauri, and we want to make him a happier dude every now and again. Not really. But do we think AlphaTauri will score a point in Austria to make Dr. Marko a wee bit happier? Cody, what's your thought?
I don't think so. It's a nope from me. I think that I don't think AlphaTauri's got the cars put together enough here, and Yuki Tsunoda, we keep joking about it. So many 11th place finishes, so many little things happening here and there that take him out of the points at the last minute. I think it's bound to happen again here. And sad to say, but Nick DeVries hasn't been performing reliably enough this year for me to think that he's going to do it this weekend. So I think it's going to be Grumpy Marco.
Grumpy Helmut Marko. Yeah, I'm going with the German 9. I don't see AlphaTauri getting a point here in either the sprint or in the main race on Sunday. I just think they haven't done the pivot yet until they actually do it. It looks like they're kind of just are where they are. They're the team with probably the least amount of enthusiasm or upward trajectory around it. You can kind of see all the other teams have something that they can now kind of latch themselves to. I don't see any of it with AlphaTauri. So I think, unfortunately, it will be no points for them. Of course, they'll probably prove us wrong, cost us a couple points. That's our usually outlap curse. So if you're a Nick DeVries fan, maybe we've done something to help him out. Let's put it that way. And finally, I know we didn't type this out, but because it's a sprint weekend, we should at least do a sprint podium. Who do you think is going to be on there? And we'll give ourselves a half point here.
Podium for the sprint. I'm going to go Max Verstappen winning because why not? It's bound to happen. If I'm staying in line with my Leclerc pole prediction, I'm going to think Leclerc is going to slip back to second place in the sprint, and I think third place will probably let's go with Lewis Hamilton.
Okay. So Verstappen to take the sprint win, Leclerc in second, and Hamilton third. I've got Verstappen taking the sprint win because, he'll just do that. But I think after that, it's going to get interesting. I will give George Russell the sprint second place. And my third place, again, I think he's just going to be there hanging around. It's Fernando Alonso, man. I don't see the Aston Martins going away anytime soon. It's maybe one of those Mercedes sprint shootouts where one of them does better on Friday and the other one does better on the Saturday in the sprint shootout. So we'll have to see. We'll have to talk about how we like the format, or if we have to get a refresher almost on the format. So in case you forgot, because it's been a while since we've done the sprint, it will start with free practice 1, and that will happen at 5:30 a.m. Eastern. So you have to get up super early if you want to catch all the sessions live. That's on ESPN2. Qualifying, which will happen for Sunday's race, will happen 10:55 a.m. Eastern, ESPN2. And the folks at ESPN are actually doing something really cool. They're going to rebroadcast the Friday qualifying at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. So if you missed it and you happen to be working and you can't find it, you have an opportunity to at least watch the whole session. It may have some additional commercials in there, but they're going to re-show it on air. And you don't have to log in or do any sort of streaming or anything like that. So that's pretty cool. Rebroadcast of the qualifying on Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock p.m. Central. The sprint shootout, which will set the grid for the sprint race on Saturday, that happens 5:55 a.m. Eastern, ESPN2, bright and early if you really want to do it. The sprint itself will be at 10:25 a.m. Eastern. That's on Big ESPN. And the final race itself, which is set from all the way back from Friday, so that grid will line up 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. That is on Big ESPN. So we will have plenty of opportunities to watch the cars go around. Every session seems to be meaningful. That's what they wanted. We'll see if it works. We'll see how it cooks here. A track you can overtake, a track that's usually provided some good entertainment in the past. Maybe a little bit better of a fit maybe than Azerbaijan, but we'll have to see.
Gosh, I missed the sprint shootout in Azerbaijan, so I didn't really have any opinion on it at that time. And I was like, ooh, I'll actually get to see the format this time. And then it's at like 5 a.m. for us. Oh, it's gonna be brutal. I don't think I'm gonna be awake for that.
Yeah, I mean the live tweet of all I will say is I will attempt them. I'm not saying that I'm going to do them. I will attempt them. I do have a full-time job that I have to worry about, so we'll see what kind of happens. But keep track of us on Twitter throughout the course of the weekend. We'll try to keep you updated with all the latest developments, post-session penalties, grid penalties, and if there are, or becomings or news events that happen to break over the course of the weekend. It will be someone with me on Sunday. I'm not exactly sure. Cody, I think you're a little bit busy.
I will
Probably
be
prepping for
acting
your
like a
trip.
madman. Yeah.
So we'll have to see if it's James or maybe Deanna can be with us on Sunday to recap all of the action from the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. So Cody, I appreciate you coming on tonight. If I don't get a
Mhm.
chance to see, I will get a chance to see you in person, but from the podcast, be safe, good luck, enjoy Japan for all that it's worth, and come on back and give us stories. We're going to be interested. We want to see.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. I look forward to it, and I'll bring lots of pictures and stories.
All right, sounds good. And like I said, we'll see you all on Sunday. And until then, may all your laps be fast.